Hi, everyone. I am Amy Ackerman, the Assistant Branch Manager at the Main Library in St. Augustine, Florida, with the St. Johns County Public Library System. Today, we're doing a virtual program with Jennifer Mitchell, the Public Communication Coordinator with the St. John River Management District. And we are extraordinarily happy to have you here in this virtual format. Initially, when we first met, it was January or February of this year. We had scheduled a talk for our monthly brown bag lunch in September, and then COVID happened and everything sort of changed a little bit. So we're very happy to have you here with us, Jennifer, and I truly appreciate your flexibility and willingness to do this virtually instead of in person. So Jennifer, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to participate virtually in your programming. The world of virtual programming provides so many opportunities for information to get out, and I really appreciate the opportunity and do look forward to the opportunity when in-person meetings start up again in the future. I do want to say that I am a St. Johns County resident as well as someone who works for the St. Johns River Water Management District. And as we'll see in just a minute, the county falls within the district, but we cover all or portions of 18 counties. And so I do also enjoy the public library system and all that you offer. So I appreciate this opportunity to provide information to the residents of St. Johns County.
Thank you. So I hadn't even realized myself that it encompassed 18 counties. That's much larger than I initially thought of. Now, I know you are here today to join us to talk about water conservation, which is a topic that's near and dear to just about every Floridian's heart. So would you like to tell us some more about that?
Absolutely. Well, let me transfer over to my PowerPoint that I have, because so much of what we learn, it's helpful to have a visual to understand that. So we may not all think about the need for water conservation because, again, we do live in a fabulous state where we have an abundance of water. And so we may not think about what we can do to decrease our impacts on that water. But today I'm going to give you a little information about how much water we use and some tips about ways that you can save water. First, I'm going to provide a little bit of background on the Water Management District. So again, I mentioned that the St. Johns River Water Management District covers all or portions of 18 counties. So we cover the entire watershed of the St. Johns River. So that means anywhere that it rains within our district, that water will move out into the St. Johns River, either through the ground and then into the river, or we also do have those coastal rivers like the Indian River Lagoon, the Matanzas River, and some of those other coastal rivers, as well as the St. Mary's River up in Nassau County. So our mission at the district is to ensure that we have enough water for us, the people that live in our district, as well as our natural systems. And so in order to accomplish that, we have 4 core missions that everything that we do falls under one of these missions. And those are water supply, water quality, flood protection, and natural systems. And I will say that we have been doing some virtual webinars during this opportunity where everyone is interested in tuning into virtual meetings. And so if you are interested in learning anything about those 4 core missions into greater detail, I do encourage you to check those out on our website. So today we're really focusing on water supply and water conservation and how the water in Florida, it's all interconnected. And so when we do think of Florida, most of us that live here in Florida live here because of the amazing water resources that we have. It is what brought myself and my husband back to Florida, was that we missed the opportunity to be in the springs, on the rivers. And so it is one of those things that it's really important that we understand how we impact those water resources. So again, Florida is surrounded by 3 sides by the ocean. We have over 7,000 lakes, over 11 million acres of wetlands across the state. We have over 50,000 miles of streams and rivers, about 700 freshwater springs, which is the greatest concentration of freshwater springs anywhere in the world. And we get about 54 inches of rain annually. And with all this water, it may cause us to say, well, there really isn't a shortage of water. But it's really important to remember that not all of that water is available for us, or it's also needed for the animals and plants to have a place to live and to have that availability for their habitats. So I'm going to give a little bit of an overview of where we get our water and why there is this interconnectedness between our rivers and lakes and that rainfall and those wetlands and the water that we utilize. So we here in North Florida, about 90% of our residents get their water from the Floridan aquifer. It is below our feet, and so we don't often think about it. I grew up just outside of Atlanta, and we use reservoirs up there for our drinking water supply. During periods of drought, when you would drive by those reservoirs, you'd see 5 to 6 feet of bright red clay, and it was a very good reminder, oh, it hasn't rained in a while, I need to think about water conservation. Here, with most of our water coming from below our feet, we may not often think about where that water is coming from and that it hasn't rained in a long time. So we may be more familiar with those surface waters, so our rivers and our lakes. Maybe we go out and have a garden, so we understand those surface sands. But there are areas of our state and of our district that there is this pink or this confining layer, so clays underneath the ground that create this perched water table. So that's where you'll get a lot of the wetlands that occur. You may be familiar with a surficial well or having a shallow well for irrigation. Those are going to be much shallower wells, and so the water that's in that aquifer system, that surficial aquifer system, fluctuates to a much greater extent than the Floridian aquifer system. So when we think about the Floridan aquifer system, it is below that confining layer, but it stretches all the way across the state of South Carolina. It stretches all the way across Florida, up into South Carolina, across South Georgia, and over into Alabama some. And it is this limestone geology that makes up the Floridan aquifer system. And so that means that if you've ever seen limestone or held limestone, there are small holes within it, and there are some really large holes. If you've been to our springs, then you know that some of those holes that the water is moving through are quite large. And so the water that moves through our aquifer system is some of that same water that has fallen from the surface through those rains and then recharge in those recharge areas where there is not that confining layer. And then there is that connection of our discharge. So we can think of our springs as the window to our aquifer to understand what's going on down in our aquifer. But the one piece that's left off of this graphic that we need to remember is us and the way that we develop, the way that we change how water moves and how we utilize water. So for our landscaping and development, we do change the way that water moves through the water cycle here in Florida. So at the district, again, it's our mission to ensure that we have enough water for us now and into the future. And so we have to know how much water is being used and what ways is it getting used. And so for 2019, our district alone used 986 million gallons a day of fresh water. About 60% of that is used from the public supply and private wells. And so that's that water that our utilities are providing us, our businesses. Private wells are if you have an individual well in your backyard. So the people that live within our district are using over 60% of the water. So it reminds us that we have a big role to play in terms of water conservation, because although we may be able to save 10 or 20 gallons a day, when we think about the fact that there are over 5 million people in our district, that really adds up. So again, like so many of our environmental problems, it's small individual changes that really add up when we all participate in them. There are also uses of water like agriculture. those commercial, industrial, mining, dewatering type uses. Landscape, recreation, and aesthetic, those are going to be dedicated wells like for golf courses or county or city parks. Sometimes have wells for soccer fields, those type of things. And then, of course, thermoelectric power generation uses water for cooling. So at the district, when we look at how water usage changed over time, that helps us to plan how water will be used in the future. And so this graphic, I love it because I'm a big graph dork, but the two things that you can see from this graph is that black line, so we know that population is increasing. We're over 5.5 million people within our district. And then those bottom two bars are that public use and the domestic, the wells. And so we can see that although the population has grown, the amount of water per person per day that people are using is not growing at the same rate. We're really seeing a lot of water conservation on a per capita or a per person basis. And so when we are looking into how are we going to ensure that we have enough water for our population and for the ecosystems within Florida, we do that through regional water supply planning. And this is a legislatively mandated way that our district work, and that we be having this proactive approach. And so the North Florida Regional Water Supply Partnership is one that is in the beginnings of its next 20-year report. So if anyone is interested in getting involved, it is a public process, and we get all of the stakeholders' involvement. And so this is really looking at where the water is going to come from for North Florida, and what types of projects are going to allow for alternative supplies of water and protecting the springs along the Suwannee and Santa Fe. So we incorporate projected growth, projected water demands, all of those types of ways to meet the needs for our natural systems and us. So when we think about, well, how much do we need as individuals, or how much do we use? About 85 gallons per person per day is what the average district resident uses. And it is important to realize that we can cut that in half almost when we look at the fact, and we'll see in just a second, that most of our water use is through irrigation. And so one of the best ways to understand how you can start conserving water is starting with your utility bill, understanding how much water you are using. And so we have a sample JEA water bill here. And so we can see that if you look at your water service, you can pull out how many thousands of gallons of water. And so here it is John and Jane Doe are using about 4,000 gallons of water in a month, or in 29 days. So you can do some simple math, 4,000 divided by 29. So at their household, they're using about 70,000 gallons, or 70 gallons per day. So they are saving water, but they could conserve more. There's always new ways that we can conserve water or really be more in tune with it. And ultimately, we can even see here that their 4,000 gallons, their current charge is only $27. So even a 1,000 gallon decrease isn't going to have a huge impact on their pocketbook, but it is some dollars of savings. But it's really an opportunity for preventing big costs down the road. So what do I mean by that? Well, currently we use the Floridan Aquifer because it is the cheapest source of really clean water. So it is about $1 to $1.50 per 1,000 gallons to treat the water from our Floridan Aquifer, because it is a really clean source of water. And this is not what our utilities charge us. Our utilities do have to think about all of those long-term infrastructure things and all of the staff that they have and all of that. Reclaimed, so that treated wastewater that is a great source of alternative water, is about $1.50 per 1,000 gallons. And then as we start having to go to alternative sources, so if we're having to go to deeper wells or to surface water, so the river or building reservoirs, those type of things, or treating brackish groundwater. There's more in that water, so it costs more to treat it. And then finally, desalination. If we were to have to go to desalination, it would be 6 to 8.5 times more expensive than what we are currently paying. And so it is that reminder that conservation is the cheapest way to have more water into the future. And so it is important when we think about where can we conserve water, is to look at, again, where we're typically using those 84 gallons per person per day. And about half of water that's used in a home, if you have an irrigation system, gets used outside. And about half of that is wasted. So it's either applied after it's rained, or it's applied directly to a sidewalk or to the street, or not efficient irrigation. So really addressing and looking at your outdoor irrigation, and then inside, looking at your toilets, showers, and your faucets. And then also making sure that you address any leaks that you may have. So indoors, what can you do to save water? So you can do things like retrofitting a toilet. So if you have an older toilet, those tend to use about 5 gallons. So if you have one from the 80s or before, they're going to use about 5 gallons per flush. But if you put in a newer toilet, they're going to use 0.8 gallons per flush. So you can have a big water savings from replacing a toilet, especially if it's in a heavily used area of your house. Maybe it's a guest bathroom that gets used more than a master bathroom, depending on children and all of that. Shower heads, always look for the WaterSense logo. Those are going to be the most water-saving shower heads. And our shower heads use, if you buy just a traditional shower head, they're going to use about 2.5 gallons per minute. So if you're in the shower for 10 minutes, you've already used 25 gallons of water to start your day. So it is important to understand and to think about where it is that you're using water and how you can save it. So just taking a couple minutes shorter shower, you can save 5 gallons of water maybe. So there are lots of opportunities for water conservation inside. And then outdoors, making sure that you have a functioning rainfall shutoff device, because again, we do get 53 inches of rain on average. It's not even throughout the year, but during our very wet summers, you can just turn off your irrigation, and when your yard shows signs that it needs water, then turn it back on. Don't just let your system run. And so we have been doing a lot of messaging trying to help people with understanding that concept of watering just when it's needed. You also, if you're looking at your landscape and thinking, I really want a new fresh look, I encourage you to visit our WaterWise landscaping database, where you can put in what types of plants you are wanting, as well as your soil conditions. So if you have sandy soils, if you have acidic soils, and then also the light conditions, and it'll give you a good list of what kind of plants you can put in those, because so often we may try to get a plant to grow somewhere that it really doesn't want to grow, and then it takes more water and more energy to get it to grow, or a lot of replacing it. And if you do have in-ground irrigation and you have grass that you're keeping going with that, do realize that we have irrigation restrictions, and these are across the entire district. And so those are during the spring and summer, no more than 2 days a week on your designated days, and not between 10 and 4. So you don't want to water in the heat of the day when most of the water can be lost to evaporation. And so again, we are encouraging people to water less. So think about their irrigation system as a supplementation for that rainfall, rather than how our grass is going to get all of the water it needs. So I am really glad to hopefully give everybody an idea of ways that they could save water within their homes, and the importance of water conservation and how it fits into the St. Johns River Water Management District. During the summer, and as we switch to our fall restrictions, I do encourage you to watch the weather and wait to water. And then when we do fall back for our time change, make sure you change your irrigation timer to switch back to 1 day a week of irrigation. If you do have any questions that have come up, please feel free to email me, and that email address is at the bottom of this slide. And Amy, that is all I have. So thank you so much.
Fantastic. I do want to mention that I did take a look at the WaterWise plant database that you all host, and it's fantastic. There's a lot of really great information on there, so I definitely encourage people to take a look at that. So thank you again, Jennifer, for joining us today. We do have your email up here, so we encourage any patrons watching this, if they have any questions, to please feel free to reach out to Jennifer, and I'm sure she's happy to respond to them.
Absolutely. I am going to stop sharing my screen.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, well, again, thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us today. We really appreciated you taking the time out to come and talk with us about, again, a topic that is very important to every Floridian out there. So thank you, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you.